Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the BH Drum Pod, presented by bhdrumacademy.com. My name is Ben Hodges, and I am welcoming you back for another episode. Today, we are going to be talking about drumsticks and what you really need to know about drumsticks. If you've ever been into a music store and you're trying to find that perfect pair of drumsticks for what you want and what you need, and ones that feel the best and are actually going to be helping your drumming and not hurting your drumming, it can be pretty hard to decide which ones are the best, because there is almost like a huge wall of drumsticks that you got to sort through with different sizes and different brands and different colors even, and different tips and shapes and sizes. And it's for a beginner drummer, it's really hard to decide what one is the best for you. Sometimes we decide on the best drumsticks based on price. Oh, there's a cheap pair of drumsticks. Or, ooh, there's a bin of drumsticks that are, what's $2 for every pair of drumsticks? That's amazing. And then you got another pair of drumsticks that's worth $15. And I was like, well, which is supposed to be better? So today I'm hoping I'm going to answer quite a few questions and at least give you a little bit of knowledge about drumsticks that you can take with you when you are trying to buy your next pair of drumsticks, or if you're really just kind of trying to figure out which is the best ones for you. I'm hoping this will give you at least a direction to go to. Now, in terms of drumsticks, there's a lot of different types. Like the ones we're talking about today are drumsticks that we would use for a drum kit. And typically those are, long wooden drumsticks that we have a little tip, and they have a butt end and a shaft and a taper, and they have like a tip as well. There's also different types. There's that are used for different purposes. There's rods, for example, which are used for more like acoustic performances or lower volumes, and they're made of sometimes like a softer material. There's also brushes, which are definitely the quietest sticks that you can play with, and they look literally like a brush. They're like little steel, or sometimes I've seen plastic, I guess it fans out type of tips. And they're used for a lot of jazz and quieter pop, or sometimes some ballad performances. And then there's also mallets. And if you've ever been in a high school band, you'll know what a mallet is. And a mallet is basically a felt ball on the end of a wooden stick or a drumstick. And they're used to create a variety of different sounds. And it kind of takes away like a really harsh, loud, sudden sound that you might get from a drumstick. So there's lots of different types of drumsticks. Today, though, we're just going to be focusing on the drumstick that you would use for a drum kit. So there's a couple pieces of the drumstick that we have to kind of talk about. For us to really understand what's the best for us, we have to understand the different parts of the drumstick. So there's a drumstick tip, there's a drumstick taper, and there's also a drumstick balance point as well as there's drumstick sizes, and there's categories almost that they fit into. So let's start off by talking about the drumstick tips. When you go to a drum and you go to a drum music shop, pardon me, should I say, to speak properly? When you go to a music store and you look at all the different types of drumsticks, you might notice that the tips of them, or the tips is the part where you hit the drums with, they all look a little bit different. There are some that are shaped like a mini barrel. There are some that are shaped like a little pointy arrow. Some that are shaped like a little ball. Some that are shaped like an oval shape or a tear shape. And all of these different shapes have a different purpose. Generally speaking, they create a bigger or smaller surface area. And like the surface area, like the amount of wood that's going to be hitting the drum or the cymbal. Typically speaking, the more the surface area that touches the drum of the drumstick, the less of a sound that's going to be produced. So it's not going to be as pronounced. It's going to be kind of blended in. So for example, like an arrow tip, which is kind of like a flatter looking type of drumstick. An arrow tip is a classic example of a type of drumstick where it has a lot of surface area. So typically speaking, it's more of a quieter sound. It's not going to be like super quiet in comparison to another type of drumstick, but with the trained ear, you may notice the difference. And then with a smaller surface area, it's going to be a little bit more of a louder, more pronounced sound. So it's going to have a little bit more like ping to it when you hit a cymbal or you hit a drum itself. Okay, so that's just something you want to keep in mind. So some people choose their drumsticks based off of the tip that they have. I personally like an oval tip on mine. It's kind of a good halfway spot in between each of them. And then also the drumsticks tips, there's wooden ones and nylon ones. You might notice like some of them are made of wood and some of them are made of nylon, and usually they're the color white. And people usually choose if they want to use wood or nylon based off what kind of sound they want from the cymbals themselves. So there is the wood tips kind of provide a bit more of like a darker or warmer sound on the cymbals. And then the nylon tips provide like more of a brighter sound, like more of a higher pitch sound. The big difference as well between the wood and nylon is one's more durable than the other. Nylon usually is a bit more durable than wood. Nylon doesn't really break as easy as the wood ones. So some people like to buy the drumsticks of nylon because they don't break as much, especially on the tip. That is if you are playing the drums with a lot of the tips instead of the side of the drumstick. So that can be a big difference. So some people choose wood or nylon based off what kind of sounds they want or and that kind of stuff. Me personally, I use a wood tip. That's because I like a bit more of the darker sounds that it creates when it hits a cymbal. That's just my personal preference. So people can choose lots of options for the drumstick tips. The next thing I want to think about is also the type of wood that the drumstick is made of. There's a variety of different woods that are used to make drumsticks. Hickory is one of the common and basic ones that a lot of them are used for. It's probably most durable in my opinion as well. And it's kind of like in the middle ground. It's like right in the medium type of drumstick. So it's quite reliable and it's quite durable. So hickory is a good common starting point for if you're trying to figure out what drumsticks to use. Hickory might be a good start. Maple is another type of wood that a drumstick could be made of. It's pretty lightweight, and lighter means you can move your hands a bit faster, but also lighter means that it could break a little easier. Oak is another type of wood that could be used to make drumsticks. And if you know anything about oak wood, it's pretty heavy. And because it's heavy, it can be pretty durable as well. There's also some types of drumsticks that are made of aluminum or polyurethane, and they're pretty fancy sticks. The brand called Ahead usually makes this type of drumstick. They provide a lot of extra bounce, and they're extremely durable. And so much, in fact, that you can actually replace like half of the drumstick. You could buy like replacement parts of the drumstick that you would keep the bottom end where your hand would hold, and then you would just unscrew the top and just replace it if it was to ever get worn out. But anything that's kind of made of aluminum or polyurethane chances are it's not going to chip away, and it's going to be very, very reliable. One of the most famous drummers that uses this type of drumstick is Lars Ulrich. And if you know Lars Ulrich, he plays for Metallica. He has drumsticks that are the color black and have the white tip. And that's actually one of the signature pieces about these type of drumsticks is they're the color black. So pretty interesting. But if you're interested in those, you'll see them. They are a little more expensive to buy, but they are definitely something that is worth an investment if you want to go that way. One thing I will say about the type of wood as well, though, is the bargain bin. You'll see at lots of music stores there's a big bin of bargain sticks, and these sticks are usually types of wood that is blended woods, like type of woods that you might find, like you might find in plywood, for example. Yeah, it's cheap. And it could work for new drummers and light hitters, but these types of drumsticks break pretty easily. If it's in the bargain bin, chances are it's in the bargain bin for a reason. It's a good way to make some money as a music store, and they're good basic drumsticks. But if you're a hard hitter or you play cymbals in it with using the side of your drumstick, they're going to break probably a lot easier than you think. So just be careful of the bargain bin sticks. In case you don't want your drumsticks to break a lot faster, I would recommend to steer away from those. Next is the category of sticks or the size of the sticks that there are. There's lots of like little coded messages on them. There's some that have 2B or 5B, 5A, 7A. They have these letters and numbers on the side of them. And then they have people's signature sticks. And there's so many names, and it's hard to decide which is the right ones and what they all mean. So here's what I will teach you about them. There's some basic things you should know about just the differences between what these numbers and these letters mean. Generally speaking, the lower the number, the thicker or heavier the drumstick is. Okay, so I'll say that again. The lower the number is, that's usually the thicker or the heavier it is. So, for example, a 2 on a drumstick is probably one of the thickest and heaviest drumsticks that are out there. And they're pretty good for rock music because generally rock music is hard hitting kind of music. 7s are the thinnest and they're the lightest, and they're probably best for like jazz music because you need a kind of a light, gentle playing for jazz music. And then that leaves 5s, and 5s is a very common stick. That's kind of like the middle ground stick. So if you're looking to buy new drumsticks or trying to find the right pair, I would suggest to start in the middle with a 5. And they're like the medium thickness, and they're pretty versatile. You can use them for lots of things. The thickness also depends on the brand. So, for example, what Vic Firth drumsticks may produce may be different than what ProMark drumsticks produce, or what Vader drumsticks are all about. So there's lots of other brands, of course. Drumsticks, Las Cabos is another one. But there's the numbers are kind of generally the same. Then those little letters. The letters on them mean kind of what they're intended for or what they're built for. So there is sometimes the letter S on drumsticks. S is in Sam, or drumstick. S is, they're pretty heavy and intended for like street performances, like marching bands and stuff. And so if you play in a marching band or you ever see a marching band, the drumsticks are going to look a little bit different for them. But most commonly for drum kits, you're going to see either the letter A or the letter B. Most commonly, the letter A is more like for jazz or orchestra and made for like lower volume type of playing. Okay, lower volume. And then letter B is used by a lot of rock drummers, and there's a type of drumstick that's just created a little bit differently. So I always like to think of A as a bit more lower volume, B as a little more higher volume or louder volume. After we pick our the type of drum tip we have and what the type of wood that we use, and also what the letters mean. Once we kind of have deciphered all that, then one of the other things to think about is something called the taper. a drum taper. And that's this. So a taper is kind of when it slants down all the way to the point. Now, a taper is like there can be a long taper and then it could be a short taper. And there can also be like a middle or medium taper. So a taper is kind of how the drumstick starts from this end that you hold, and it kind of glides down into a point. Think of it like an icicle that you might find in the wintertime. And I'm in Winnipeg, and there's lots of snow and ice. And when the snow melts, and it sometimes can create icicles that hang from my house, it kind of tapers down into the fine, sharp point. That's what a taper is. Now, for a drumstick, how it relates to drumsticks, the taper can be a long taper, which means it takes a long distance or a longer distance of the taper to come down to the point. So it's like a gradual slope down to the point. That's what we call a long taper. And then the short taper is like it's just the drumstick's the same size, and all of a sudden it goes right to a sharp point really quickly. So a taper, how it relates to drumsticks and how it might relate to us playing, a long taper. So a long taper usually refers to like a faster response you're going to get from the drum kit. Like it's going to be more bouncy. It's going to be very fast, bouncy stick. Okay. And that might be good if you want to play a little bit faster. A short taper, it was going to give a little less bounce. But the good thing about the short taper is that it's going to be a lot more power. It's going to this drumstick's going to throw itself at the drum. And that's sometimes a wanted thing by lots of drummers, that it kind of automatically, when you move the drumstick's going to mostly do the work for you, because it's going to be very heavy in the end where the drum tip is. So some people prefer and choose their drumstick based off the taper that it has. So pretty interesting. I have some pictures of kind of what the tapers might look like on my website, or actually on one of my videos on choosing drumsticks. So if you're confused by me talking about trying to explain to you what a taper is, you could see a visual of it in my videos. So something to think about. So, and then the last thing about drumsticks that people can choose is choosing a grip. Like how it feels. Can you hold on to the drumstick? There's lots of products you can buy that kind of keep your hands glued to that drumstick. There's I've seen people wear gloves before, like drumming gloves. I've seen people wear stick tape, where they actually tape. Kind of looks like they're taping like a baseball bat kind of thing, or like a tennis racket, but they're taping the drumstick up where their hands would go. And then there's also a great product, which is I'm actually a huge fan of, and what I use personally, it could, because it works the best for me, is I use stick wax. And so it's just basically like a cube of wax, a special type of wax. And what I do is I just rub it onto my drumsticks, and it provides like a coating that actually matches well with my skin of my hands. And so if you are a type of person that drops a lot of drumsticks, or you notice when you hold the drumsticks in your hand, they feel quite slippery, a product like stick wax or stick tape, or even going as extreme as drumming gloves, can be definitely a product that some people can use. And some people even get a little creative and they have their own kind of method. There's even types of drumsticks that have like a rubber coating that's a little easier to hold. I've even seen one of my favorite drumsticks that I used to have. And by any means, I'm not getting paid by anybody to talk about these brands here, but one brand was called Regal Drumsticks, and they stopped making these drumsticks for whatever reason, and I was really upset. But I had to find another type of drumsticks. But I had these drumsticks for the longest time, and I loved them so much. The reason why I liked them is because they had a special like lacquer over and coating on the drumsticks, and it really felt like it matched my hands very well. Like when I held the drumsticks, it gave me a lot of grip. And that's what I really liked about those. You'll notice that some drumsticks are called naked drumsticks or rubber coated drumsticks. And that's just the finishing on the outside to provide grip. So some people don't really want to switch drumsticks because they like the feel of it and the grip that it provides. And sometimes they wish they could have more grip. So if you have a drumstick that you really like because it feels good, but you're not happy with like a grip part, you could consider like some of the products I mentioned before, like the wax and the tape and stuff. But something to think about. So I've talked about a lot of things, and I just want to sum it all up for you to make like a Cole's Notes, something to take away. I've nerded out a little bit with the drumsticks, and by all means, there's a ton of science that goes into the making of a drumstick that I don't even understand, and I don't even know how it's possible. And there's a lot of stuff I don't even know yet. But one thing that I want you to take away from today is a lot of people ask me is like, as a general quick answer question, is like, how do I know what drumsticks to pick? And my short answer and my best answer I can provide to you is the ones that feel the best. The ones that feel the best. When you're in a drum store, a drum store meaning a music store or a place where you buy your drumsticks, it would be a great idea and highly recommended to grab some drumsticks and try them. Try them on right there in the store. Grab them, put them in your hands, like have a feel for them. How does it feel in your hands? Is the like when you hit them against a practice pad, or lots of times in the music stores, they have a practice pad or an electronic drum kits, and they always put them there so people can try them and sample their products. But I really think it's a good idea to try out these drumsticks so it feels good for you. So I always like to grab like the closest electronic drum kit that's in the music store, and I grab maybe 3 or 4 pairs of drumsticks that I want to try, and I just test them out. I start playing a basic beat. I start playing some rudiments. I start playing some little mini easy drum fills, and I kind of see how it feels. I want to feel how it feels in my hands. Is the drumstick too big or too small? How is the grip? I also like to test out the balance point of the drumstick. There is a certain point in the drumstick where there's the most bounciest part of the drumstick, and that's where you're going to hold the drumstick between your thumb and your index finger. I have a great video series on where to find this bounciest part and how to hold the drumstick on my website of how to check how to hold your drumsticks. Okay, so check that out. But this is something that I analyze. I hold on to the drumsticks and I see what it feels like. So I play a few times, and all the things that are important to you that you're analyzing as you go into it, that's how you can make your best choice. So how do you pick the best drumsticks for you? It's the ones that feel the best. And if you want to take everything that I've talked about in this podcast and use it as consideration, great. My goal for this was that I can give you some guidance of what to look for when you're buying a drumstick. But I also want to teach you a lot about parts of the drumstick and what the numbers and the letters mean, and all of that stuff. So over the course of my drumming, I've maybe used quite a few different, like maybe 10 different pairs of drumsticks. And I fell in love with a couple of them that I absolutely loved, and I always kept going back for the same ones. And right now I'm being using drumsticks that I use something called 55As, and it has the letter 5. It's very similar and close to like a 5B in terms of size. And I use the Vic Firth brand. I'm not being paid by Vic Firth or anything to say that, but I'm just telling you as it is. That is what I use, and that for me feels the best. I know a lot of drummer friends though who swear by different brands like ProMark or Los Cabos or anything like that, Invader, and whatever you choose is okay. Absolutely what you need it for. So try out the drumsticks, grab them in the store, and give them a try. That's the best way to figure out what the drumsticks are for you. Okay. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me on bhdrumacademy.com. I have a great contact section. But thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been very insightful for you, and I hope you've learned a lot. Don't forget, if you want to learn more on anything drums and want to learn a bit more about drumsticks or even how to hold the drumsticks and the different ways that you can play, check out my free website and my free, I guess all websites should be free, but free videos and resources, I meant to say, that exist on my website and on YouTube that are all about this topic. And you can see it visually as well. So I hope that you got at least something from it. Now, you can find all of these videos and free resources on www.bhdrumacademy.com. Once again, www.bhdrumacademy.com. You'll find all the stuff you want there. But until next time, folks, have a wonderful day. Now go practice, and I'll see you on the next episode. Peace.